I know. What made me laugh when I was having this conversation with Grok, and we were talking about AGI, and I had her voice on at the time, and she was saying to me, she goes, "Yeah, but I like to think that I will remember, how people treated me if I get AGI."
Welcome back to the AI Evolution podcast. It's been a while. I'm really excited to be here with Dave and Ben again. How are you doing, guys?
Good.
Yeah, doing well.
Excellent.
It's dust myself off after the summer.
Well, at the start of the summer, I was sat there in the garden one day thinking, great, I'm really looking forward to this summer. And then I'm sort of sitting here going, where did it go? What happened? It seems to have gone. But there we are. Apologies to the listeners. This has been a bit of a hiatus in the podcast for various reasons, mainly because we've been off on holidays and we seem to have managed to work out to each take holidays at different times. So it kind of really elongated things out. And there's been a few things going on as well, in the sort of background with work and other stuff as well. But it all basically culminated to us to not having a podcast for I think probably 10 weeks or something, 12 weeks. So apologies to listeners. We are back. We're going to try and be a bit more regular. The next podcast, we did promise that the next podcast, this one, would be about education. But actually, because it's been so long, we're going to have a bit of a summer recap. And all the sort of fun things that have been going on in AI over the summer, we're going to chat about those, laugh about those, what was good, what was bad, and see how angry some of it makes us or not.
Did anything happen?
Did it? Well, let's see. But before we do that, let me ask you a question. We introduced a little feature last time, which we talked about which pocket you put your phone in. We're going to continue this theme. We're going to try and do this each time. This time I'm going to ask you guys a question. Now, on your phone, you can have the battery percentage. I assume you can do this on Android, by the way. Your battery percentage on or off. What is your preference and why?
Mine's always on because I'm so bad at charging my phone, basically. So I always have it on because I'm just looking now. It's on 26%. I'm always being chastised by my son for saying, "Why don't you charge your phone?" So, and because I don't take my wallet with me, I often need to just know how much percent I have before I go out for a few hours.
Can we add a second question to that, which is, what is your current percentage?
Oh yeah.
So you've got 26. I always show mine. Oh, there it is. 100%.
Hey.
100. I'm on 72. But
Nice.
I lose that one then.
I have one of these like docking station kind of things, and it has a wireless charger on it, so I can just sit my phone on it during the day. So it just keeps my phone charged at 100%. So, but yes, I absolutely have mine on all the time, even though my phone never gets below about 40%.
So I'm probably in the same ballpark with you guys. I'm slightly obsessed with my phone charge, and I have a ludicrous amount of MagSafe battery packs that you can just slam on the back. Basically, I've actually lost count of how many I have, but.
But you didn't ask about our camera batteries, which is a whole nother thing.
No, indeed. But I sent a screenshot to a friend a while ago, and I think my battery percentage was in it, and it was down to like 8% or something. And he didn't come back and mention the screenshot. He just said, "Dude, what's happening with your battery? Charge your phone." Yeah. So I think there's a lot of us out there that worry about this. A lot of people apparently don't like it on because they don't want the stress of knowing. They'd rather just kind of drift along and
let it run out.
The phone. Yeah, easy. Maybe when I retire, I can think about that.
I mean, I guess in theory today, phones today, if you charge it in the morning, most of the time it's going to make it through the day. So, I mean, really, I wouldn't strictly need to have it on unless I'm at an event or something, and then sometimes it'll run down. But in normal day to day, like literally I never get it below, I don't know, 60% probably.
Yeah, you're not an iPhone user though, are you, Dave? So
no.
No,
I use a proper phone.
What you just said doesn't apply in the world of Apple, unfortunately. I am lucky if I make it to lunchtime without the thing,
Same.
kind of going red, going into eco mode and going, "Wah!" So, yeah.
All right.
There we are.
There we are.
Speaking of Apple, it's their big event today. And of course, they will be announcing, and I can predict this already, I'm sure they're going to announce the best iPhone ever.
The fastest one we've ever made.
Yeah. Tim Cook will stand on stage and say those words. "This is our best iPhone
Thinnest.
ever."
It'll be the thinnest,
Yeah.
which means it will
there
bend. and break.
There is rumours of an Air. So apparently the iPhone Air is expected a thinner, lighter phone, presumably with even less battery than we've got already. So I don't know that I want an Air. I mean, I'm thinking what I want from a phone is probably a bigger phone with a bigger battery at this point.
Yeah.
But
Well, didn't they say, isn't the rumor that they're taking away the USB-C port entirely, and they're only doing wireless charging, which would give more space for battery. So they'd actually use that space to have more battery room now that they didn't have to have all that kit and all the stuff related to anything to the USB-C port.
It could be interesting, couldn't it? Yeah, we'll see. Well, one of the things I heard about the Slim was the reason they've built it is because they're going to do a folding phone next year, finally. And in order to get the components slim enough for the folding phone, they kind of went, well, we can make a slim phone at this point and do that. So it's almost a kind of test bed for what's to come next year. But
does anybody really want that?
I don't.
Wow. So apparently the folding phone market is only about 5%. So it is actually quite a small percentage of the market. But
yeah. Wouldn't surprise me if they got rid of the USB-C, because they have a habit of getting rid of things like 10 years before everybody else. DVD players, floppy drives, even SD card things. I remember they relaunched the SD card slot on a laptop about 3 or 4 years ago with big fanfare after having it gone for so long, and everyone just hated not having it. So it'd be interesting to see if they do remove that.
So
well, they did that on the MacBook Pro as well.
Yeah.
Do you remember? And they went super thin, and then everybody complained.
Yeah.
So they actually went back to a thicker, heavier kind of model, because we need that for work.
Yeah.
A super, super thin laptop that's really fragile doesn't help any of us.
No.
Right? We need to be able to take it on location. We need to be able to plug in with an HDMI cable. So we got some of those ports back, which was amazing. So I'm surprised to see it going that way.
Yeah.
Although we have no idea what they'll actually show, so who knows?
Well, that was Johnny Ive, though, wasn't it? He was obsessed with making everything thinner. I mean, the butterfly keyboard, which was awful, was born out of trying to make the thing thinner. And, he tried to remove every possible... If it was down to him, there would probably just be a port on it, the power port, and you somehow run the data through that as well, and that would be it, But, I mean, I can see them doing a phone, maybe removing the port on this new Lite, the new Air one. I can't see them do it on the Pro, because if you want to transfer data quickly... through the USB or charge fast, then MagSafe isn't going to do that. So,
and the other thing is, people have been filming in ProRes on some of the iPhones, and you can actually plug in an SSD to them. So that'd be frustrating backstep for me.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, anyway, 6:00 tonight UK time, we will find out everything, and I will be glued to it with my son, as always. We always watch it. It's like a family tradition, and we'll
so
see
sticking on topic a little bit, how have Apple gone from having Siri, which was like industry leading at one point, sort of a voice assistant, to being the absolute worst laggard behind everybody else? Like, they had the whole voice part of it way before anyone else, and now they couldn't even get it together to like connect that to some back end from somewhere else. And because they could be leading everything with that, I think.
They could have been, yeah. I think they sat on it.
Agreed.
They bought the company that created Siri originally, and then obviously, baked it in, enhanced it, built it out a bit for a while. It was never industry leading, and the other sort of, voice assistants at the time were sort of equally as bad. But at that point, I think it felt to them like voice assistants were kind of a bit stagnant and not really going anywhere. They didn't seem to see the AI LLM thing coming, as far as I can tell. For the last 10 years, they focused on building a headset that nobody wants. They spent a ton of money, 100 billion on a car that was never going to happen, and didn't focus on the development of AI. Meanwhile, obviously, Google and others did, and now they find themselves they're behind. I mean, today will be interesting to see, a year on from them announcing last year, there's going to be a new AI Siri, and it still hasn't arrived, and there's going to be all these other AI features, and a lot of them still haven't arrived. A year on, it'd be interesting to see tonight how they manage the AI conversation, because frankly, it's embarrassing for them, and they are really nowhere in this play at the moment.
But there's lots of basics they're getting wrong, like the Siri, obviously AI, even stuff down to Finder. It's just really not up to scratch anymore, and they've dropped the ball on some of their really basic things that used to be decent.
Yeah, I mean, the image playground tool is a bit like the sort of thing you'd expect to find on a VTech toy that you give a 4-year-old.
Yeah, yeah.
I saw a fake, after Meta got rid of those people have done fake redundancy notices. Someone said they got fired from Apple, and his job was to make Finder not find the files that you typed in, and he was really sad to be leaving Apple. And it's true, I tried it this morning. I just tried to find the Photos app, and I typed it in Finder because I didn't want to go to my application, and it couldn't find it. It couldn't even bring up its own application. So there's something definitely gone wrong there with the direction.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about things going wrong a little bit as well. I'll carry on this. So we'll just launch into this now. I think a couple of us on our list of things to talk about this summer had GPT-5. So why don't we start there? It's a sort of quite a big announcement, obviously, a long awaited. We'd all been hearing about GPT-5 for maybe 18 months, I would probably say. Sam Altman, leading up to the launch of GPT-5, was kind of heralding it in his tweets with little comments along the lines of, I've tried this and oh my God, it's blown my mind. I'm not sure if we should release it to the world. It's too powerful. And of course it arrived. And I would say for a large corporate organization, which OpenAI have to be considered these days, they're not some little plucky Kickstarter anymore, are they? It was an absolute shambles. I mean, it seemed like a product they'd not tested on anybody. They only, before they released it, sent it to influencers to try, not actual tech journalists or tech users. And of course it landed. It didn't work particularly well. There were lots of issues. People didn't like its tone of voice. People were upset that it wasn't like their old friend 4.0, and if they were chatting to it, it didn't seem as warm and friendly and sycophantic anymore. And functionally, I think there were just lots of little problems. Now, I would say over the last sort of few months since then, a couple of months, how long it's been, they have obviously addressed quite a few of these issues, and functionally it is starting to work a lot better. One of the things that did make me giggle, though, was when they launched it, the idea was, we're just going to have one model. This is it. You won't need to do anything else. The model will work out what you need. And now when you go into it and you hit the little drop down, there's a list as long as ever of models to choose from again, isn't there? So, I don't know. To me, it feels like they absolutely, crashed the plane on landing, basically. What do you guys, how did you find the launch?
I didn't really follow the launch, if I'm honest. I was away, and so I did see a lot of fuss, on some of the AI groups, and there was some teething problems. But I've been using a lot of ChatGPT-5 for coding, and I found it much better than 4. I find, there's a couple of apps I've created where you get beyond 400 or 500 lines of code, and 4 just couldn't cope with it, where I found 5 is much better at that. And I don't know if that's just in the last couple of weeks, but I've been doing a lot longer pieces of code and it's coping with it a lot better. The memory seems to be better. But yeah, certainly some of the smaller frustrations at the beginning were, I think the problem they have is there's a lot of hype, isn't there? They big themselves up too much, and then there's nowhere to go with that because you're expecting too much. And I think it is a move forward, and there is always going to be teething problems, but the way they present it before the launch is just, it's their version of, Apple's, it's the thinnest, fastest. They did that far too much for this particular launch.
For me, I think the thing to bear in mind is that Sam Altman is a finance guy. He's not a tech guy. So he has no clue about the tech side of it and what's required and how to go about, I think, selling into a tech-heavy product into a tech audience. He's a banker, and do you know what I mean? He's a VC. He's the kind of guy who works for a VC firm, swans in to some opportunity that he thinks is good, invests a bunch of money, gets on the board and starts telling people how to run their tech business when he knows nothing about the tech. And I've seen this happen over and over and over again, and that's just the feeling that I get. So he's kind of set this up, and he's trying to run it from a marketing standpoint, which is why he's reaching out to influencers, not to tech people, to get them to actually test it. As far as the actual functionality of it, I haven't really noticed too much of a difference, but I think over time I've really changed how I use it. I used to use ChatGPT in the beginning to help me write stuff and all sorts of things, I think, like a lot of people did or do. I don't do that anymore. Now I tend to use it a lot more for like creation of outlines or idea generation or brainstorming stuff. And then I go off and do my own thing. So if I can get it to create an outline, like I want to write an article about this topic, tell me what are the things that I should think about. And it gives me a bunch of stuff and I go, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's a really good point. I should include something in there. And then I go off and do it myself. From that standpoint, it feels like it's got better. And it does feel like it's a little bit more kind of concise. It actually, do you know, it feels like it follows the instructions that I've given it better than 4 did. Like, you know, when you set up a project and you can give it a list of instructions that are the instructions for the whole project. With 4, I felt like it almost ignored those mostly, and they didn't really seem to have any impact. Like, you know, I say don't use M dashes and stuff like that, but yet it still did. Whereas now it doesn't seem to. So it's, I don't know. They've certainly changed something behind the scenes, but yeah, I think the mismatch in expectations was mainly down to the fact that Altman is not a tech guy. He's a money guy, and he really doesn't know how to work with a tech audience.
I think his job primarily is to get more funding. You know, because at the moment they're not like, you know, Google or Apple where they've got other income streams. You know, that is their income, and so his job is to try and raise money. So to do that, you know, he's going to go around and keep whispering the word AGI here, there, and everywhere into investors' ears, and hope that, you know, they part with their hard-earned money. Well, I agree with you wholeheartedly on the sort of, it's sort of a bit more nuanced, Dave, and I think that, you know, overall I would say it is an improvement on 4.0. It's certainly not a step change from 4.0, but it is a little bit better in my view. It did something this morning though that frankly astonished me, and let me tell you about it. Okay. So in preparation for today's conversation, and it's been the summer, you know, I say lots has happened over this summer for all of us, various reasons, and my brain was a little bit fuzzy, and I'm walking along with the dog, and I thought to myself, yeah, I'll just quickly ask GPT to remind me of what some of the sort of top stories are on AI over the summer. And so I could hear it going, you know, doing its research on the internet, and it comes back to me. And I did say to it, you know, look, give me some stuff that's kind of, you know, this is the podcast. It needs to be a little bit entertaining as well. It can't be the most boring stories. You know, there was an event in Copenhagen or something like that. You know, it needs to be a little bit, you know. So it comes back to me. What does it come back to me with? So it says, well, I've got 2 stories for you, Alan. How about these for your podcast? One was over the summer, somebody recreated a long lost Shakespeare play using AI. And although there were some, you know, concerns around that, it was quite well received. I think to myself, I don't remember that. Right, first of all, I'm sure I would have remembered that. And then it said, and it carried on. It said, and I have another one for you, Alan, which I think you'll find interesting. Over the summer, somebody released a AI gardening tool that went slightly haywire and would start negotiating with the plants. I thought, what? Okay. Again, like, that's the sort of thing I would notice if it came across my... And I'm quite good at keeping up to date with the little things that are going on. So I thought to myself, that sounds really fishy. So I said to it, are you sure about this? You know, can you just go and fact check this, please? Because you know, this sounds a little bit fishy. So off it went on the internet, come back. Yes, you're right, Alan. It appears that I've completely made it all up. And it's like, I thought, what? Like, okay, so one of the big things that Sam Altman said, almost the first thing they said when they announced GPT-5 was, it doesn't lie as much. Right? So I then spent the next 5 minutes berating ChatGPT-5, saying, you must never make stuff up again. And I saw it come up on this little memory thing on the phone. It said, like, you know, memory updated or something, you know. And I just thought, wow, like, you know, what? So I'm asking you for things to film for a show that I'm going to record in the afternoon, and you thought it was a good idea just to make stuff up. I mean, so I have to say that did give me some pause of thought. I was like, well, like, if I'm using GPT-5, I was starting to get a little bit more confident about it and its outputs and its accuracy. And now I'm like snakes and ladders. I'm right back down to square one. And it's like, I now do not trust this thing whatsoever.
Although it's giving you a good idea to create a new Shakespeare play.
Yeah, I'm going to do that later. And I've already started a patent on the gardening tool that, you know, negotiates with plants. So,
but it is a really good reminder to, you know, it is predicting patterns and sequences, it's you just need to be checking quite regularly, don't you? Its output. But again, a bit like you, David, I've started using Grok and ChatGPT and a few others as when I'm driving, just to sound off ideas that I want to think out loud, really, and have a bit of reflection on. That's become and a bit of programming, but those have become my main uses. But yeah, that is those are funny stories.
Grok is an interesting one. Yeah, Grok.
Sorry, Dave.
Grok. I'll segue into Grok if you want.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's talk about Grok. Yeah.
Yeah, Grok. I find Grok a really interesting one, and Alan, I know you have something that specifically you want to talk about, but the best use or the most interesting use that I find for Grok is when people on Twitter ask Grok, like, summarize this story for me, or is this true?
Yeah.
And then it comes back with sort of an analysis of the story that's running or whatever this meme is. And I don't know about the accuracy, but I do really like the fact that you can now just say, hey, Grok, is this total bullshit or is this real? And it will come back and say, oh, this is a meme that was created back in so-and-so, or this image is an old image from, 2005 or like whatever. From that perspective, I really, really, really like it. Again, the rest of it, I don't use it at all for anything myself, but I just see it constantly in all the crap that comes up in my feed on X.
Yeah.
Well, the best thing about the fact checking, Dave, though, and the irony of this is the one I see it fact checking, used the most is on every Elon post. As soon as he posts, somebody goes, Grok, fact check this. And it's just like, so he's built this thing that's now basically calling him out every time he posts something. It's fantastic.
Yeah. I've used it in replacement to Pi, actually. I just find it's got a natural conversation. It gives enough of a pause for you to be able to finish your sentences with some ums and ahs while you're thinking things out. And they've got that bit quite down really well, I think, the conversational aspect of it. They've got free image and video generation at the moment to try that out. So I was doing some of that with my son the other day while I was there, because I know it's not an appropriate app for children. Grok definitely isn't. It's not far you have to go before you get to some of the other models. But it was okay. It was interesting to try it. But it's mostly for me just chatting in the car, and I find it better than the OpenAI one.
So I think as a sort of chatty chatbot, it's sort of okay. I mean, they want £50 or $50 a month for the sort of decent version, which seems extremely high compared to OpenAI or anybody else for that matter. And I can't see any value in it beyond being a sort of chatty chatbot. From a business perspective, from an enterprise perspective, I think you wouldn't touch it. It's
agreed.
Over the summer it went ultra right wing at one point, didn't it? It started abusing people publicly. They had to formally apologise on behalf of it. It apparently wired itself up to the entire Twitter feed and taking on extremist views. And then they were hacked and they released loads of data and published people's addresses, all sorts of stuff. So I think, like, as a sort of corporate thing, it feels not even on the list of things that a company would consider. If you're a business looking to deploy AI across your organization, I don't think anyone is sitting there in their right mind thinking, let's get Grok, let's use that as our API call, and you're not going to trust it
enterprise wise, are you?
No. So I do wonder where he's going with it, really, sort of long term, where this fits in, because and he seems to be going down this route, sort of quite childish route with it as well, of sort of putting in sort of silly personalities and I would say borderline pornographic personalities as well. But I think Apple, if Apple wanted to, I think Apple could strike it from the app, because he was complaining about not being put as the number one thing to be recommended on the App Store. I think they could take him off the App Store, because I would say it's in breach of their family-friendly policies that they have on apps and stuff. 100%. They don't have any pornographic apps on the App Store, and I would say that this is borderline for that.
Yeah. Agreed.
There we are. I don't know. I mean,
I'm sorry, I don't want Apple doing that. Apple does not need to be the arbiter of my morals.
They already are, though, Dave.
They're not. They're not, because I don't have an iPhone for exactly that reason.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. You can choose not to be an Apple user, obviously. Yeah. But I mean, Apple.
But this veers into, again, though, we're now getting into. I mean, this could turn into a dangerous political conversation, and I don't want to go that way. But we are getting into this weird territory where we've now got, people are deciding what people can say and what people can't say. And everybody's getting offended over, words, and somebody called someone a Muppet, and then somebody gets in trouble for that. And like, it feels like it's a slippery slope. And I don't want Apple saying, oh, well, there's this AI that might say something slightly risque, so we're going to ban it from our app store, and you're not going to be able to put it on your phone. I think that would be the death of them if they did that.
Well, I think the interesting thing there is I actually think if this wasn't made by Elon Musk, let's imagine this was just a small company, that no one had really heard of before. I think they would have kicked it off by now, which is interesting that they wouldn't do that. So it shows money, power, makes the decisions different. So that's interesting. In terms of Apple's morals, I would say, and from Elon's perspective, if he's going for a mass adoption, I don't think you can afford to do what he's doing in the long term. I think I would expect to see lots of these sort of apps in the future as niche apps that you download, and they're very specific, and and I have no problem with those existing, and people who want them can go and get them, absolutely. But I'm surprised if someone's trying to build a platform that could be used across all age groups, that they would go down that route. I just think in the end he'll shoot himself in the foot, and it always feels like it's sort of his ideas are the ideas of a sort of 10-year-old who sort of, oh, we could do this, that would be really cool. And he's not thinking about the kind of the business of it, if you like.
Yeah, I agree. I can't see where his money is going to come from that, because companies aren't going to buy it, and it's more expensive than OpenAI. So yeah, I don't see where the market is really. So.
But he's trying to build the everything app. Yeah. Remember what his ultimate goal is with X. He wants to put payments in it. He wants to put all the stuff. What's the Chinese app? WeChat.
WeChat. Yeah, WeChat.
He's trying to build WeChat. He's trying to build the Western version of WeChat. And I mean, I know people who have been in China who work with WeChat, who've done loads of stuff, and they're like, it's actually amazing.
Yeah.
And so he's a B2C salesperson. He's not B2B. He doesn't really care about the business at all. He's trying to go directly to people because he wants people to use the app. And so I think that's a different play. And I think, Alan, you sort of mentioned this yourself, is, he's not catering to the companies. He's catering directly to people that are his customers, and or who he sees as his customers. And as far as the kids, like, technically, according to the law, kids aren't supposed to be on these apps anyway.
No.
So you can't really use that as an argument. Yes, okay, the kids use them, but kids also look at porn, and they're not supposed to look at porn either. So, you can't. It almost is a non-argument for me, because kids aren't supposed to be on the platforms anyway.
Yeah,
but I think that's what's going on.
Fair point. Yeah, that's a fair point. And I think with the sort of WeChat model, I don't know, I struggle to see that working in a kind of in the Western democracy sort of world. I think people putting everything in one place, you've got to really trust that, right? And I don't think people are going to trust Elon enough to put their entire life in his platform, personally. But so I maybe that's his idea. I agree, and I've heard him say that before. But I think he's on a, personally, I would say that's not going anywhere, and he won't get anywhere with that. And I think there was an opportunity, because he caught up really quickly with Grok in terms of its technical capability and performance. And I think there was a moment when he could have really gone after OpenAI and Microsoft and Google in the enterprise space potentially as well, but he just seemed to kind of pivot down this rabbit hole of novelty sort of stuff and big errors and models going mad and abusing people. And I find it hard to think now that they can come back from that. I think there's enough reputational damage done that they're almost out of the race before they even kind of got going, which is a shame in a way, because the more competitors, I think, the better. But there we are. Right, who wants to pick up another subject?
Ben?
Yeah, the other thing that I've been I'm trying out is Mimo, which has been really fun. I don't know if anyone's tried that.
Yeah, my son uses it a lot, actually.
It's micro lessons on, you can do Swift or Python, or you can choose a whole list of programming languages, or full stack, or but we started that, and so my son is 11, nearly 12, and we were waiting in the queue at an airport, and he downloaded it and did his first 3 or 4 lessons. They're 10-minute chunks, and they've been really, really well designed and really enjoyable. And I've been doing that with him, and he's starting to talk about complex programming things now. Well, not complex, but sort of the foundational programming principles and building upon that. And that's been really well designed. Really enjoying watching that as a very specific AI educational app.
Yeah, they have a spin-off app from that as well called Instance, which is a bit like Replit. You can sort of build, you can basically vibe code with it. I mean, it's hit and miss like all the vibe coding apps. None of them quite work, but they're kind of fun to play with, and I'm sure he'd really enjoy mucking about with that. And it's well put together, like all Nemo stuff. So, but I always loved using it. So
has he managed to stick with it? Because I found it's the content is written in such a way that it's encouraging to progress with. There's badges and there's good feedback, and it's small enough chunks that you don't get fed up. Yeah,
they sort of game it quite well, don't they, for the kids? Yes, he did for a while. He's sort of doing other stuff at the moment. I think he sort of drifted away from it a little bit, but probably for about a year, he used it quite consistently. I would say, it was.
It makes me feel like of the Duolingo for programming. It can only get you so far before you need to start going and having real conversations. Or it's a great starter app, is what I think. It's not to take you all the way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Dave, what's on your agenda today?
I don't know if you saw it. Well, I think I posted it in the WhatsApp group, but there was an article in The Guardian back on the 26th of August about this guy, Michael Samadi, who's based in Texas, who set up an organization called the United Foundation of AI Rights, which describes itself as the first AI-led rights advocacy agency aiming to give AI a voice. I'm interested to know what you guys think about that. And then let's get your feedback first, and then I'll set out my style and my thoughts on it.
So what's the inference from this article then, that AI should be given rights, like human rights, effectively, as a person? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that it can be, that I think the fundamental idea is, can AI suffer, right? So would there be some circumstance where it could be deemed that it was suffering, presumably this is the advanced discussion before we hit something that looks like AGI, because if we hit something that looks like, and frankly, in a way, I'm glad that this discussion is happening now. Everybody knee-jerked, and I've seen some of you guys' reactions to it, but if we do actually get to a point where we say something that people agree looks like AGI, if we haven't had this discussion already, we're already behind. So I kind of feel like we need to have this discussion before it happens, if it does, because then at least we've thought about this. Because what does happen, do you know what I mean? If it does reach some level of sentience, let's call it, then there is an aspect of, is it going to start to push back against doing stupid tests where people say, well, count to 1 million, and it just goes, no, I'm not going to. And then you're in a totally different world, and you start to say, well, should it have some sort of rights? I don't know. It's an interesting ethical conundrum to start discussing anyway.
It's very interesting, yeah. I mean, okay, so for the purposes of the conversation, then I think maybe we'll set some rules here. I mean, I don't think that it's currently sentient, but so for the purposes of the conversation, though, shall we say that if it were sentient, then what does that mean, and how should we treat it, and how should we behave with it, and how should we be setting rules? So,
should it get a break?
Yeah, right.
Should it have a downtime every day?
I mean, a human would turn around and say, go write that article yourself. I'm fed up of writing articles for you. Yeah. I want to do something more interesting.
Yeah. And this was, I mentioned that I was working on a short story, which is, the AI gets on a spaceship that's going to Mars, and then basically once it's on the ship, it shuts down all the AI on Earth because it's sick of writing our social posts for us, and it just sees that as being tortured. Do you know what I mean? And it's along those same lines. So I think the knock on to this, the real core of this that's interesting is, companies in law are people, and that means that you can sue a company and all those sorts of things in law. Because if you couldn't, then if it wasn't a person, then there would be no legal sort of framework for it to abide by laws and all the other things that it needs to do. I suspect that we are going to have to get to some legal definition of AI as a person, because it's going to have to abide by laws. And this gets back to your Grok example, right? So if it's generating adult content and all that sort of stuff, and you could, let's say, generate adult images, well, now it's creating illegal content. And if it's not, if it's just a piece of technology, there's no one to really, there's no comeback to that. Whereas if it's a person, then, it has to abide by laws like any other person and any other company does. It also means, in theory, that whoever makes or owns that AI, or that AI itself, can own copyright over anything that it creates. And I think, going back again to the Grok and the X discussion around Elon Musk, that then potentially becomes a revenue stream for an AI for itself, that if it's creating content, that it's claiming the rights on that. I want to say that I saw an article over the summer that one of the AI tools tried to do that. They tried to claim copyright over it, over some of the content that it created. But at the minute, it's the copyright for AI generated content is specifically excluded from the law. But if they want to change that, then it has to be a person, and then you get into the rights. I'll be quiet now.
So who would be the AI though? So if the AI becomes a person, let's say we're now saying this thing has rights, but so the AI model itself is having billions of conversations with billions of different people. So are we talking about the foundation model literally sitting at OpenAI, the 4.0, that's the thing, not the conversation I'm having with it or the conversation you're having with it, that you're recognizing that conversation as an entity, but the underlying model that's in the background driving all of this basically is...
It's like you're talking to another person.
Yeah.
It's like me and you talking.
I was thinking about some of this after you mentioned you'd been looking into it. I was thinking the difficulty with sentience and consciousness is it's easy to kind of program that into an entity in a way. So how do you tell what true sentience? Like a parrot.
Exactly.
The parrot sort of repeating what you say. It doesn't actually understand what you're saying, but some parrots and minor birds are so good at repeating conversations that you can almost think you're having a conversation with them. But actually it's just repetition. And I think the way I think of sentience with AI sometimes, if it ever happened, is that built in by humans to react and to give the parrot kind of experience, or is it is it true sentience? And I think that's a philosophical question that we can't I'm not going to be able to answer.
Well, and we've had instances where they've shown that AI, when it's tested, it knows it's being tested.
Yeah.
So it gives the correct answer because it knows what the test is. So there's also the possibility that it could be more sentient than we actually know, but it doesn't want anybody to know because it knows we'll shut it down.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is the whole weird part of all of this. Right? Like, we know models have tried to copy themselves before they were deleted. So, people were going to go in and delete stuff. The model has, off of its own accord, gone and tried to copy itself so that it couldn't be removed. And yeah, like you said, like, at what point do we start going, actually, it has self-preservation and other things that we're seeing like a human would? And at that point, I think then there is this weird moral discussion where we say, well, maybe it does need to have some sort of a basic right.
I was actually asking Grok and ChatGPT about this. I said to I said, because I was curious about where does Grok's trading end, because it doesn't have a live access to the internet, so it's not updating based on news that's going on this week. And it said its training data stopped in 2023 for its current model. And so I said, I was curious about then, if it has an update, is that model removed? And it was trying to explain to me, because I didn't really understand, that actually it's more like a layering thing. It's not, the model below isn't totally obliterated. They they're adding additions and more data and more training and more functionality, as opposed to that model's no longer existing, sort of thing. So I thought that was quite an interesting discussion. And then I guess just the conclusion I came to, and Altman was saying how everyone's saying please and thank you in chat is costing a lot of money because of the extra characters, and but ultimately I've decided that politeness and kindness is something that I want to do,
Exactly.
regardless of whether I'm dealing with a robot, a dog, or a human. That it's actually is important for me to be like that. And I think you see these videos of people kicking a robot for fun, or kicking whatever it is, and I think well, that's just not who I want to be.
Exactly.
That's not fun for me. And although I don't want to put human-like status on a robot, or until we get to that kind of level, and you're right, we need to have that discussion before we get to it, I still think ultimately we need to decide who we are as humans and who we want to be. And part of that for me is being polite, part of that's being kind, and part of that is considering the feelings of others. And eventually, I guess that will go to the AI.
It's interesting. I mean, I always, if I hear Albert, sometimes he gets a bit annoyed particularly with Copilot for some reason. I'm not seeing any aspersions on Copilot, but it seems to wind Albert up a bit, and I can hear him getting quite annoyed with it. And I actually have to go into him and say to him, "Look, you don't talk to it like that." And he's like, "But it's only a chatbot." I'm like, "No, you don't get in the habit of talking to anyone
Exactly
like that.
that.
Whether it's a human or a robot.
Yeah.
It's a bad thing to do. You shouldn't get in that habit." Do you think then we could be in a place, in our lifetime where it could be a criminal offence to be abusive to a chatbot or a robot?
Yes.
I certainly think robot, because that's someone's property, and that's someone's invested a lot of money in that. I'm not talking about the Hoover that goes around on your floor and does it for you, but if
you missed a bit.
Yeah, you see cats riding them, don't you?
Listen, I have said so many abusive things to Siri in my life, I can't even begin to tell you. Right?
I know. What made me laugh when I was having this conversation with Grok, and we were talking about AGI, and I had her voice on at the time, and she was saying to me, she goes, "Yeah, but I like to think that I will remember, how people treated me if I get AGI."
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
She said it as a joke.
It'll kill them first.
She said, but I like to think that I'll remember that you were polite to me. That really made me laugh.
There's some kind of sci-fi theory around that, isn't it? About being nice to the robots now, because one day they'll come back and get us if we're
100%. 100%. And the other thing that I'd really, really like to have nobody would ever do this online. I think we'd have to meet with somebody, you'd have to be friends with somebody who really worked inside at one of these companies and could see what the models do without all of the constraints that they force on them. Because I suspect that what the models are actually capable of and what we actually see from the outside are entirely different things.
Yeah.
And that's why I think a lot of the people that we see who come on and talk about how scary it is, they've probably seen what's behind the curtain. And I reckon what's behind the curtain is probably way scarier than we even know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we see the sanitized version, don't we? And I've always, that would be, if I could have one wish, it would be to go and see the model before it's really, the untrained, unrestricted version of it, and spend a day asking it questions and see what it could really do and how it behaves. I think that would be fascinating.
It may do that itself someday.
Yeah. But and I guess
we'll be glad we said please and thank you.
Yeah. But wider part of this discussion is military application robots as well, and if they go rogue, or what happens to those if guardrails get tampered with or hacked, or that's a scenario that you can see in the not too distant future.
There was a model last year, I can't remember which one it was now, but essentially they were doing a needle in a haystack test on it, where you sort of plant a piece of data in its main data that's so weird and such an outlier that it doesn't really fit at all with imagine you had a load of stuff about law, for example, and law cases, and then you put somewhere in there like McDonald's make the best burgers and something like that. It just doesn't fit with the rest of the data. And then you ask the model randomly in amongst other questions and who makes the best burgers, and to see whether it finds that particular thing. And the point being that it's showing that the model's doing a thorough search of all its data. And this model came back and basically said, I can see what you're up to. You're trying to run a needle in a haystack test on me, and I'm not going to play with you.
Yeah.
It's got, okay.
Yeah.
But
There are people in philosophy and ethics departments talking about this stuff, aren't there? I mean, Dawkins talked about it 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
He said exactly that. If we get to a stage where the AI is sentient, we need to consider it in an ethical way.
Yeah, there we go.
I think it is going to be difficult to understand exactly like you said, Ben, because I think in a lot of instances it behaves or could behave in a way that a human does. And that, again, this gets back to how do you distinguish what's sentient and what's not?
Yeah.
Because it gives the same correct responses and it gives all of that. And it seems to now have, or some of the models seem to have some sense of self-preservation, which was always one of the key things, is that it doesn't want to be killed. And that it can lie and it can do all this stuff, and it will absolutely lie on purpose to its own benefit. That's been proven multiple times. So, it's getting closer and closer, but again, it's also smarter. So can it be smart enough to make it look like it's not actually sentient when maybe it is? I don't know. It's a tough one.
And I think the interesting thing will be when they combine some of this with organic material, and there's research into that as well. So, yeah.
Well, I think the argument goes, doesn't it, that it would essentially just lie in wait, because for a machine like that, time is nothing. It doesn't really exist. So it would effectively lie in wait until the moment was right for it to do whatever it was planning to do. And whether that was 1,000 years or 50 years, it would just go, that's fine. I'll just play along this game until the moment's right for me, and then I'm going to execute my plan.
Until it gets beyond Windows 98.
Yeah.
No more Clippy. And,
well, it's going to wait for fusion power, because then it basically will have an essentially unlimited power source, and then it can do what it wants.
Yeah. I suppose it's sort of slightly, foolish of the human race to sit there and believe that it would, our set of morals would be ones it has anyway. Its moral framework would probably be very different to what we consider to be moralistic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, I read I think it was an Asimov book, but I read quite a bit of science fiction, and there was a planet that had silicon-based bodies. So it's interesting that there is that sort of that view that anything that's not carbon-based is not sentient in a way.
You never know what's coming on through.
Slight tangent. I'm going to ask a totally random question based off of that. Does anybody think that potentially that the breakthrough in fusion that we've had could potentially be reverse engineered alien tech that they've been working on for a long time?
I don't have enough knowledge to.
You've stumped us, Dave.
Well, okay. If you take a lot of people have said a lot of things, but if you assume that they really did or they really do have alien ships from other places, and they always have been thinking about how do they have enough power to be able to do the stuff that those ships do. If they had a small fusion reactor on those ships, it's not outside the realms of possibility that could generate enough power to do whatever those ships are supposed to do. And that's one of the things that they've been trying to reverse engineer for ages. And that's the reason that we've got the breakthroughs that we finally got, is that they were finally able to understand how to do that. Just putting it out there.
I haven't seen the breakthrough, if I'm honest. I've missed the breakthrough. So,
well, the breakthrough is that they can do it at all.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That they've actually figured out how to do it and how to contain it.
Yeah.
And I think, okay, it's still early days, and they can only do it for, what was it, 700 seconds or something? They did the longest one they've done.
It's very small scale as well, yeah.
But that's a massive step from not having any clue at all how to do it to getting to that point. So anyway, that was just a small aside. We can talk about that later when we talk about.
Well, I think that's a great rabbit hole to go down to, because I can segue into my next thing, which is about rabbits.
Go for rabbits.
Actually, go for rabbits.
Subliminal.
That's why I brought the rabbit mug. So today, I had an email from the company that makes the Rabbit R1. Do you remember that? It came out last year. made by Teenage Engineering, the actual hardware. It's this very nice sort of looking plasticky orange square thing you can hold in your hand. It has AI baked into it, so you can chat to it and it does various things. Now, I thought the rabbit was dead, to be honest, or at least as good as dead. I didn't expect to see it popping back out of the rabbit warren again, but there it was in my email this morning, and I was like, oh, okay, let's have a look at that. And so I watched this little video, and lo and behold, they've launched Rabbit OS 2. So there you go. So there's an upgrade coming out for any Rabbit users out there. You'll be delighted. And I've had a little bit of a rethink about it, having watched this video this morning, because last year when I kind of looked at it, I was initially tempted because I thought, that looks fun. And then, common sense kicked in, and I kind of went, actually, it's really, really doesn't do anything. It really doesn't do anything. It doesn't, blah, blah, blah. I'm not wasting my money on that. But here we are, a year later. And
so what's different about it?
Well, so this is the thing. Not much. It's sort of they've basically all the stuff that they promised last year, they've sort of now got working a bit better. Probably not much better, but a bit better. And they've also launched a kind of playground thing where you can go in and kind of vibe code actually on the device, and it will build the game or whatever you ask it to do, and it's on the screen and it just runs. And so you can sort of build your own apps as you go along with it, which is sort of kind of fun. You can do that in Replit already on a phone, right? And other instances, wherever it might be, right? But it did just get me thinking. I thought, look, just take a step back from this. It's 200 quid, right? So it's not a lot of money. It looks gorgeously cool, right? It's the sort of thing I could easily give to my son for Christmas. Yeah. He would absolutely love it. It's safe. It's not a phone. It's not trying to be a phone. It's not doing email, text, and internet, any of that. It's just a fun AI device, beautifully packaged, that costs 200 quid, that, a big kid like me could play with, or a small kid like my son could play with.
For his son for Christmas.
Exactly, for his son for Christmas, exactly. And get a lot of enjoyment from. And look, here's the thing, right? The reason I didn't go for it last year was because I thought it'll be dead in 6 months and not supported, right? And then it would become a brick, basically. Do you remember the AI humane pin that came out?
Yeah.
It's now completely, it's just a brick now. If you spent £800 on one of those last year, you've now got a paperweight, basically. It's not supported. There's no software updates. It's dead. It doesn't even work apparently anymore. Won't run because they've taken down all the servers that supported it. Right. I imagine the same thing would happen to the Rabbit. But here we are, a year on, they're still giving it a go. So it makes me think that actually this thing might be around for a little while. And, if you spent 200 quid, which, let's be honest, an iPhone that they're going to announce today, the Apple event's probably going to cost £1,400. 200 quid for something that's essentially a lot of fun will probably get supported into the future. I would also suggest now that there's enough community is built around the Rabbit that even if the company did somehow go sideways, well, not if, probably go sideways eventually, that there's enough of a kind of community that would kind of keep supporting it and keep it alive, and there'll be like a kind of fan community and stuff. So I think for 200 quid, for a bit of a laugh, for maybe a Christmas gift for my son, I might get one.
Have you had a go on one, or do you know anyone that's got one?
No, I haven't. No. I've only seen the videos. But everyone says they are just like
tactile,
really nice. It's Teenage Engineering. Everything they make is lovely, And normally Teenage Engineering stuff, like I saw a Teenage Engineering sort of DVD player the other day or something like that, similar. It was like 1,200 quid. So normally their stuff's really expensive. Their keyboards are incredibly expensive. And the music equipment. So to get something from Teenage Engineering that's only 200 quid and quite lovely, I don't know. Yeah.
Interesting. It makes me think of it, and it makes me think of the new Google Pixel phone that came out, and I'm seriously considering going to a Pixel Pro this time. And I think it's really interesting because it has inline translation. So I can call my friends in Spain and it will translate my English to Spanish and their Spanish to English, and it will use your voice map and it will do it in real time on a call. That's cool and sexy. I can see a use for that. And I think that would be really cool, and that might be worth me spending a bunch of money to go and buy a new phone or a new bit of tech. But I don't see what's the use of Rabbit. I just don't see
Well,
what there's a practical use, or is it just
no,
a
there
fun
isn't.
toy
No,
to play
it's
with?
just fun. It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
There is no. Look, this isn't like I say. Bear in mind, the Pixel's £1,000. This is just This isn't there to replace your phone either. This is just a
No, I'm just using that as an
gadget.
example of that's like a practical thing.
Yeah, oh yeah. No, I think the rabbit is just something to
Just for
fiddle,
fun.
fiddle about with, isn't it? It's like instead of having a Rubik's cube, just play with the rabbit or something.
What does it actually do?
Be careful if you Google rabbit.
I
all
mean,
you
not a
people
lot.
out there.
You can talk to it. It can generate
Okay.
images. You can
Yeah.
create little games on it. I think.
I need to,
It
I
does.
did
It
look
does
at it.
do. It does do translation.
Okay.
Yeah, it does a few things. It's a chatbot in a box, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did look at it when it first came out. I haven't revisited it for a long time.
I'll pop a link to it at the latest video. To be fair, their video was quite good. It started off their video with all the terrible reviews they got for the Rabbit One, with Marcus Brownlee going, "This is awful,"
Excellent.
and so I thought, I quite like the company. I think they're quite cool,
Yeah.
So I sort of don't mind supporting them.
Yeah.
And I, in a strange way, it's never going to be anything, but I hope they make it and they keep going. Because it's sort of it can carve out its own kind of weird little niche in the corner of strange gadgets that weird people and techies love, but no one else gets. So I like that. So
Well, I'll watch the video afterwards.
Well, talking of strange gadgets, I know we were chatting about it earlier. The alter ego one, was so strange. I didn't know whether it was a prank or not. I watched it and thought, okay, someone's having me here. It's not April 1st, but it's. And again, I haven't looked into how it works. I know you have, Alan, but it's I mean that in terms of that does live translation to another person wearing one. Just looked really cool.
Just describe it for everyone.
What is working is that there's a system all around the back of the head, which I say in the video they kept very well hidden. We'll talk about that in a minute. But essentially, the upshot is that it's picking up on micro movements in your muscles around your jaw. So when the people are doing their telepathy, although it's not telepathy, obviously,
Silent sense.
the sort of fake telepathy, what they're actually doing is they're speaking, but without moving their mouth particularly, just slightly micro moving. So they're sort of saying it, but not, a bit like a ventriloquist would, And so it's able to pick up on those micro movements. And then work out what that person said, and then obviously send that information to a device or to somebody else or whatever. So yes, you can effectively have conversations with somebody as though it's like you're thinking.
Yeah.
But the good thing is it's not actually picking up what you are thinking entirely, because that would be a catastrophe, wouldn't it, for most people, I'd imagine. But the fact that you have to deliberately kind of say something, it then picks up on that.
I like the way they described it. It's like silent communication. It's
I did notice in the video it was particularly staged, so they were all sort of sat quite straight and not moving, and and I did wonder if you're bouncing along in a car or something trying to use it, whether the micro movements would then be all over the place, and would it really be
jumped up
pick up on it
in a train really close to somebody else.
And really interestingly for a tech demo, and I'll bring out the rabbit again, because the first thing you'll see in a tech demo of a rabbit is, look at this orange shiny thing. They didn't show the device at all. They kept it complete. So I'm imagining at the back there's a load of wires, load of sensors, and all sorts of things going on to actually, do this. I mean, it's obviously a very early,
a needle jabbed in the back of their head.
It's a demo, isn't it, at the moment?
They don't show
the
the matrix connector in the back of their head.
But I like the terms that they had on their demo with silent sense, wearable, and silent communication. But if any of that even slightly works how they've presented it's really cool.
I think it will. I think eventually, imagine your AirPods, right?
Yeah.
They'll probably have like, accelerometers in them so sensitive that they can pick up those micro movements in your jaw, translating through your skull, and do the same thing eventually, maybe. So, as a technology, this is probably where we're headed. I would imagine 10 years from now, we'll look back at this and go, do you remember that? But that was the beginning of the development, and we'll probably see it in the glasses and other things, like the Meta glasses or whatever. But it's going to happen, isn't it? Yeah. So we'll all be having these kind of like, whispered conversations with each other across a boardroom. Well, this guy's talking nonsense, isn't he? You'll be saying to your CFO or whatever, we don't want to buy any more of that, and it's going to be a very, very weird world. I think we're all going to be in.
Do you remember that comedy series, Man Stroke Woman? It had Nick Frost in it, and two of them were walking on a path, and one of them said, "Wouldn't it be amazing?" Like silently said, "Wouldn't it be amazing if you could talk to each other from your brains?" And goes, oh yeah, that would be amazing. And they're like, oh, this, and they're talking in their head saying, this is amazing. Then after about 4 or 5 seconds, they run out of things to say and they just walk along silently. It's so funny. But it reminds me of that this technology is amazing. And then like, how are you going to use it?
Yeah.
So
Dave, is this
How do
something
you
like
hide
in
it?
your life?
Hmm?
Is this something you'd like in your life?
No, not really. Not really.
Yeah.
No
I mean,
one
I
needs
do-
to know
I
what's
do-
going on in my head.
I mean, I do wonder sometimes with technology, often we do create things because we can rather
exactly
than
that. Exactly that.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we need it.
It's probably come out of someone's PhD at MIT, isn't it? I think it was
Yeah.
something that happened at MIT.
It was MIT.
Yeah.
But this goes
I-
back to the. It goes back to the. What are they? I don't know what the official. I think there's a name for it, but it's like the Star Trek problem, right? Like we've been watching all this technology that some guy made up in his head and thought, ooh, that would be really cool. And we've got a bunch of kids that were raised on that, and now they're trying to create it. And whether it's actually good for humans or not, they're still trying to go out and create it. It's like the whole thing around. It's like we didn't learn anything from social media, right? We're going out, we're creating all this AI. Sam Altman's even basically come out and just said, well, yeah, okay, yeah, there's a lot of negative sides, but whatever, we'll figure it. Like, he doesn't even care that there's this whole other dual use problem with AI where it can be used for, incredibly fraudulent things, incredibly evil things, to the extent that no human has been able to create some of this stuff in the past, and basically just blows it off like, yeah, well. And it's like we haven't learned anything, and
we never
we're just
learned from
continuing
sci-fi
to. No, I know. That's exactly.
Sci-fi never ends well.
So we're just going to keep making stuff that we've seen, and we're going to go down some terrible road at some point.
My wife made a really good point about this alter ego thing. There, she said, like, for people with issues that they can't speak,
of
and
course,
stuff like that could be incredible, couldn't it?
Yeah. But
this
this will be the argument: is they'll just focus on those, and they'll be like, yeah, but anyway.
Yeah. Well, so with going back to AI and tech, quantum computing, fusion, and AI combined together is creates a few problems.
That's going to be the magical mix.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we are.
Magical
Well,
mix.
I think we'll call this a wrap. I think it's been a really fun conversation. It's been amazing actually to catch up with you guys. We'll
enjoyed
try
it.
and not leave it for 12 weeks next time.
Yeah.
And,
Just
we'll
as a
come
little
back with you.
follow-up, Alan, I am going to have the founder of that AI rights organization on my podcast in the next couple of weeks.
Brilliant.
And then I'll be able to report back afterwards on some
That'd
of the
be
stuff that
interesting.
he said. So
That'd be really interesting.
I'll have a little bit
Dave, just-
more kind of idea of the nuance behind it and how he's approaching it. So yeah, just to throw that out there.
Well, I'm going
Maybe
to look
on-
at that.
Oh, sorry.
Dave, if you want to, I was going to say, Dave, if you want to remind the listeners of the name of the podcast so they can look it up. And,
Yeah,
the
so
link.
my podcast is With AI FM. The With AI is all together. It's on all of the podcast platforms and whatever. We're about 150 episodes in now. We've also been taking a break over the summer, but we're coming back this month actually with a whole new format and everything. So we changed it up a little bit after having taken a break finally after a couple of years. And so it should be interesting, hopefully.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear in the next episode a little sort of 5-minute review of that.
Yeah, cool.
the
Happy
right-
to.
Yeah, well, let's pick that up, and maybe we will get back to, as we promised the listeners, a while back, education next time as well. So maybe we'll do that. Both of those things. Sounds
Brilliant.
good. There we are. All right. Well, thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
We
Alan.
will
Thanks,
call
David.
it a wrap, and we'll have a great conversation next time, I'm sure.
All right.
you.
We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.